ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. We have an incredible guest tonight that I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of weeks ago. Gertie's Folk City was ground zero for the Greenwich Village folk scene. Rolling Stone called it one of the three most consequential clubs in the world, along with CBGB's and the Cavern in Liverpool, where the Beatles got their start. Carolyn Hester was just delightful. She's known as the Texas Songbird, and she went back to the very first gig at Folk City. She's got an amazing story. She's worked with Buddy Holly's producer, Norman Petty, produced by the Clancy Brothers, and of course, the late, great John Hammond, the greatest talent scout, one of the greatest producers in the history of American music. So it was the 60th anniversary of Gertie's Folk City 2 weeks ago at the Iridium in New York City, where I met Carolyn along with Rob Stoner, the bass player for the Rolling Thunder Revue, Willie Allen, James Maddock, and the great Terry Roach and Richard Barone. But I've heard our guest for years and years and years. And without any further ado, I want to welcome the Texas Songbird, Miss Carolyn Hester.
Hello, Paul.
Carolyn.
Yeah, this is great.
It's so nice to have you. I mean, I'm such a student of the American folk scene. And when I debuted at Folk City in 1985, it was like, at Gertie's Folk City, it was like entering the promised land. And your name is so associated with that club. But let's start earlier in your career. Now, Carolyn, you just had a birthday. Could we tell people how old you are?
Of course.
Yes.
I was born in 1937, and I just had my 83rd birthday.
You look like you're about 35, by the way.
Well, I think it's the company you keep. You know what I mean?
Well,
and maybe the food you eat, but it's the company you keep.
And your spirit. And your spirit just radiated off that stage, Carolyn.
Well, thank you.
Talk about how you fell in love with music, and then we'll get into your amazing career and connections.
I always loved the folk records that my folks had around, Rural Lives records and things like that. But it was when I was in the 7th grade in Dallas that they announced they were going to have a talent show, and so I was looking in the songbooks that we had at school, and one had "Oh, the Days of the Carrie Dancing." In other words, an actual folk song, an Irish folk song, and so I learned that. And I had a friend named Carolyn also. She played piano, so she played the piano for me, and I sang. And I got past the audition, and they added me to the show. And the show was really wonderful. I enjoyed it. That was my first public, singing. The next day, a teacher came up to me. She said, "Carolyn, you don't know me, but," she said, "I really enjoyed when you sang yesterday. And I was just wondering, do you have a record player at home?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I have a record, a long-playing record, an album. If you would be interested, I'll bring it tomorrow and I'll give it to you. You can take it home, play it, and bring it back to me." And she said, "I think you might like that music, based on what you sang." So next day she handed me a record by Susan Reed, an American singer, folk singer, who played zither, and she was an acquaintance of Burl Ives, it turned out. And I think she knew Pete Seeger. So all those people knew of her, but this was my first introduction to her. We just didn't happen to have her records and stuff. Well, I loved the record, I wasn't going to go out and buy a zither or anything like that.
That's an instrument that should make a comeback right now, I think. The
Wouldn't
zither.
that just be fabulous? Yeah, yeah. And an electric one too. Okay.
Oh, wow.
We're gonna electrify it. Okay. So at any rate, I learned some of the songs, and so 7 years later, when I was 20, and I met Norman Petty, who produced Buddy Holly, and I said, and he was telling me, he says, well, I have an artist that's very well known now, Buddy Holly. I said, what? The Buddy Holly? You know? And
Carolyn, how did you meet Norman?
A very strange thing. My mother sent a penny postcard to Norman Petty, his studios in Clovis, New Mexico. My mom and the family were in Lubbock, but I had already gone to New York because I knew I wanted to be a folk singer more than anything in this world. And so I was kind of looking for Pete Seeger, you know.
Sure.
And my mom said, I've got to have you be in a school or something, so I will know where she, because they had been to New York. They already knew that New York, you know, is vast and full of so many people, and you can get pretty lost. Anyway, so I entered the American Theater Wing for a year, and I was taking voice lessons and so on. So at any rate, the summer that I was 20, I went home for a few months, and my mom wrote the postcard to Norm and said, my daughter's already gone to New York. She aims to be a professional folk singer. Do you audition people locally? And she said, I heard your group called the Roses on the radio the other day, and they talked about you. And here's my phone number. Well, he called her.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, we audition young people. If you want to come over on Friday or something, he named a couple of days. And so we said, well, we'd be delighted. And so I drove. Our old car was an old Ford, and we called her Claudia. And we went over to Clovis, and I had my guitar, and I sang for Norman. And so he and his wife had been professional performers already, been on the road for about 10 years, and he decided to settle down and start the studio. So he said, you know, we don't know all that much about folk music. Do you think you have enough for an album? And I said, oh, sure. But that wasn't quite true. But anyway, as I explained at the Iridium the other night, I went home and right quick learned Ye Banks and Braes of Bonnie Doon. And so that's on that album, too. And so I included on the album one of Susan Reed's songs called If I Had a Ribbon Bow. Beautiful, beautiful song. At any rate, Norman said, well, because of my success with Buddy Holly, he said, I think I can get you a record deal. And I was just flabbergasted. And so he says, we're going to be coming to New York soon ourselves. And so in walks Buddy Holly. So
wow.
I introduced to Buddy Holly. And he says, yeah, we're going to play the Brooklyn Paramount. He said, you should go with us.
Wow.
Wow. I actually rode on the subway sitting next to Buddy.
Wow, this is so incredible.
It was a while. So at any rate, Buddy didn't seem to be adverse to folk music himself. And I mean, of course, we all know the tragic, ending. But
sure.
In the meantime, I got to be in some of the sessions in Clovis, to witness them. And also his last session, which was in New York City, and Paul Anka had written something that he wanted to record. It was It Doesn't Matter Anymore. And of course, he walked out of there, went on tour with the guys, and they were freezing cold in the bus. And so he said, well, we've got to have some clean laundry. He says, just guys, give me all your laundry, and I'm going to rent a plane, and we're going to meet you, meet the bus, and with the clean laundry, and we'll go the next, leg of the tour. And of course, he was killed in the Big Bopper, Richie Valens. It was such a tragedy, and it nearly killed all of us. Absolutely,
And that was, on the anniversary of that tragic crash. It was just
February the 3rd,
several days ago.
Yeah, February 3rd, 1959, I think.
We've got Carolyn Hester on the phone for the whole show on the Wall of Power Radio Hour tonight. We're going to listen to a song she cut called All Fly Away with a young harmonica player from the Iron Range named Bob Dylan. And when we get back after the break, we are going to talk about Bob, Carolyn, John Hammond, and that session.
Hi, this is Charlie. Dad, don't embarrass me by making me say this.
What does a used iPhone go for today?
Fine. My dad is the greatest fantasy football player of all time, Matt McNeil.
I won our league this year.
Ugh. When I'm getting together with my friends without my dad, we always go in my Sienna. Not only does it drive great in winter conditions, but it can easily fit all my friends with seating up to 8.
My son's friends' parents request he drive because he has a Sienna. It tells you everything you need to know about their safety and reliability. See for yourself at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Moe's Tax Service on Ford Parkway in St. Paul has been preparing tax returns since 1971. They're one of the most successful independently owned tax services in the country with a diverse team of highly trained and screened tax preparation experts. Tax laws and forms are always changing, and you need someone who is a dedicated tax preparation professional. Visit www.mohstax.com. That's MOHS tax.com. Or give them a call, 612-721-2026. Moe's Tax Service. They work for you, not the IRS.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join. I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture. It helped me get my job, it helped me pay for my house.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Minnesota Army National Guard. Aired by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association and this station.
Victor's 1959 Cafe in South Minneapolis is a locally owned and operated restaurant offering traditional Cuban food. Open for breakfast and lunch daily with dinner Tuesday through Saturday. For night shift workers, Victor's even has both a morning and evening happy hour, and Victor's now accepts dinner reservations too. Stop in and try some delicious authentic Cuban cuisine like ropa vieja and seafood paella. Make your reservation and learn more at victors1959cafe.com. Victor's 1959 Cafe, revolutionary Cuban cooking.
If you're someone that counts on AM 950 to bring you the latest in progressive politics, news, and talk, remember, we can't do it alone. Support our many great advertisers and let them know you heard about their business on AM 950. If you don't know who to talk to, simply write AM 950 on your receipt. AM 950 is supported by small, local businesses, so you're not only helping us and those businesses, but our local economy as well. For a complete list of our sponsors, log on to am950radio.com.
Welcome back to the Wall and Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. On the phone for the whole show tonight, my new great friend, Carolyn Hester, the Texas Songbird, who I just met a couple weeks ago at the Gertie's Folk City 60th reunion. Carolyn, we heard at the end of the first set on the Wallop Radio Hour, the tune All Fly Away with a harmonica played by a young Bob Dylan. Tell us about how you hooked up with John Hammond and the recording session that included Bob, how Bob got on the recording session, and then how John ended up signing Bob to Columbia Records.
Well, you had said that Gertie's Folk City was ground zero for the folk music. It was a proving ground, Gertie's Folk City, and I was very lucky because of Buddy Holly, and Norman Petty. I actually had a record and was able to get played on radio stations, and so that helped us build up the crowd at Gertie's Folk City. And the kids from NYU came across the street to us, and then it was catching on. Oscar Brandt was playing us on his station on WNYC, and then the youngsters in communications at the different universities in Jersey and New York, they started having their own folk shows, and it just was amazing. It was like an unstoppable thing. Well, one of the people I met at Gertie's Folk City was Bob Dylan. He came in one night, and he sat down and he was watching my set and this and that, and it got late, and so I thought, well, hey, I'll sing Lonesome Tears. I mentioned Buddy Holly. I didn't always do that because he was iconic, rock and roll forever.
Right.
So, well, at any rate, I sang it that night. Well, all of a sudden, this young guy with a hobo type hat, he pulled his chair up to nearly beside me at the stage, He says, "Hey, did you really know Buddy Holly? What's that all about? And so after the show's over, I'm packing my guitar and I'm telling him the story. And he says, "Look," he said, "I play harmonica. If you ever need a harmonica player, here's my phone number." And that was great, But I remembered him. He was so unusual looking, and about 3 weeks later, I'm playing a gig in Boston at Club 47, and that was the home of Tom Rush and Joan Baez, so the Jim Kweskin Jug Band. I think there were more. And so that was one of those proving grounds,
Right.
And so I'm going to do a gig, and in walks Bob Dylan, and he had hitchhiked to Boston and talked the people into letting him open the show for me. She's my friend. This would just be great, So the next day we're all sitting together at the beach at Revere Beach, and he's saying, "Listen, Carolyn, if there's some other gigs like this one last night," he said, "where I could open for you," he said, "I would love it." He said, Dave Van Ronk and his wife Terry, she was at Gertie's with us, reading with us. Yeah, he said they're helping book me, but he says it's really difficult, and and he said I can still play some harmonica with you and stuff too if you want, or guitar, whatever. And I said, well, hey, actually the next thing I'm going to do is make a record. John Hammond is looking for folk singers at Columbia. He's got Pete Seeger already, and I said my second album was, with the Clancy Brothers, the Tradition album. I said, but I went to them. I said, look, John Hammond's put out the call, and I'd like to join them. And he auditioned me and all, but I said, I owe you guys, and they said, hey, that's okay. We're going there too. We're going with John Hammond too. So anyway, so I told Bob all this. I said, I already have Bruce Langhorne,
right,
with my guitar player. I said, but I said my dad happened to play harmonica on my first album on the choral record, my first one with Norman Petty, I said, if you wouldn't mind playing some harmonica. He says, oh, absolutely. He says, okay, here's my phone number again. Do not forget. I said, oh, I couldn't forget. So I said, well, we'll have a get together and play, and we can pick which songs would be good. So we had agreed on a date, and I in the meantime I talked to John Hammond, and I said, well, looks like I've got a harmonica and I've got, of course, guitar. I like both of them. Of course, I'd heard Dylan in Boston, and I knew I could depend on it. It was great.
Right.
And so I said, but I want a bass player. I said, there's this guy named Bill Lee who plays, he's played on some Odetta records, and I would really like to have him. He says, Bill Lee, he says, he's a jazz player, too. He says, I know him. I'll get him.
Right.
He says, now, I haven't heard your band. He says, what you do is you organize a date, and I'll come to the village, and I'll listen to you. And I said, okay. Well, John Hammond walks in the door. There's an apartment we were staying at. We've got a picnic table in the kitchen. It's not my apartment. There's a picnic table in the kitchen. I'm sitting on one side. Dylan is sitting on the other. John Hammond is sitting next to him, and Bill Lee is standing. He's got an upright bass.
And let me just jump in here for a minute, Carolyn. Is Bill Lee is the father of filmmaker Spike Lee?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep going. I'm loving this story.
Well, it's sort of unusual. Well, anyway, so John Hammond was fascinated with Dylan. Right away, you could see it was just wonderful. And did we do 2 songs? I don't think that's all. I think we did 2 songs, and he was sold. And so he says, okay, well, I'll set it up and we'll start. And I think it was mostly the month of September of '61 at that time. And things went down pretty quickly. The overhead was so little, they've made money many times over on that session, but of course it was their introduction. It was their introduction to Bob Dylan, and they've made billions off of it. Right. So at any rate, then of course, when Bob Dylan had his big Madison Square tribute, when he'd been on the label 30 years, I got invited. Right. And I got to sing in Madison Square Garden. They had women doing duos, so Nancy Griffith and I, who were buddies, we did Boots of Spanish Leather, so that's how I got associated with that song, really.
Wow. And we're going to hear your version of that song in the next set. I had the pleasure, after I played at Folk City in '85, I'd start bouncing around the village, and there was a place called the Speakeasy. I don't know, that was, so I ended up playing there one night with Nancy Griffith, and she took off not long after that. But 2 wonderful Texas singers, Carolyn Hester and Nancy Griffith. That was a beautiful show. We're going to have Carolyn on for the rest of the night on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
The AM 950 2020 Blues Day Ball is on Sunday, February 23rd at Bauhaus Brew Labs in Minneapolis. We're celebrating AM 950's 15th year. The VIP event will take place from noon until 1 with a meet and greet with Tom Hartman, plus all the local hosts. General admission is from 1 until 4 p.m. and expect a lot of political guests. And all tickets get a signed copy of Tom Hartman's latest book. Get tickets now. VIP $75, general admission $40. You get them at am950radio.com. That's am950radio.com. The 2020 Blues Day Ball, Sunday, February 23rd.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Join us for New Beginnings, Saturday mornings at 11. Brought to you in part by Vision Loss Resources.
Supporting the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities has never been easier. You'll find an expansive list of local dining options at eatlocalminnesota.com, from classic American comfort food to authentic flavors from around the world. Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts. Stop in the wine bar and enjoy a unique pizza loaded with fresh vegetables and perfectly roasted meats. Over 30 wines by the glass, Cafe Latte highlights Washington State wines and is the perfect destination for date night or an evening with friends. 850 Grand Avenue, St. Paul. Victor's 1959 Cafe has been serving South Minneapolis traditional Cuban food for over 15 years. Victor's is open for breakfast and lunch daily and now accepts dinner reservations too. Stop in and try the Pollo Tropicale or the Sandwich Cubano, which was featured on Food Network. More at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Did you realize that Drink in the Style is available on iTunes, Google Play, and pretty much every other podcast platform out there? You can listen to past episodes of Drink in the Style, or maybe download our really cool martini glass graphic, or just listen to your favorite episode again and again. But if you do, I need to ask you for a quick favor. Hop online and give us a 5-star rating. It helps others find the show and also boosts my fragile ego. Drink in the Style. It's a great way to kill Sundays, or really anytime at all.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Sam Turnberg. Tonight, it's gonna snow with a low around 14. Tomorrow, the snow continues with a high near 25. Monday, mostly sunny, with a high near 27. Tuesday, partly sunny, with a high near 27. And Wednesday, partly sunny, with a high near 30.
Don't miss the Midwest's largest health and wellness show. It's the Healthy Life Expo this Saturday and Sunday at the Minneapolis Convention Center. See up to 200 exhibitors, free speakers, and more. The Healthy Life Expo this Saturday and Sunday at the Minneapolis Convention Center. See it all at expoguys.com. That's expoguys.com.
Oh, I'm sailing away, my own true love, and I'm sailing away in the morning. Is there something I can send you from across the sea, from the place that I'll be landing? No, there's nothing you can send me, my own true love. There's nothing I'm wishing to be owning.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metz. We just heard my guest, Carolyn Hester, performing Bob Dylan's Boots of Spanish Leather. Just a great version. You have such an amazing voice, Carolyn.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Oh, my.
And, hearing you a couple weeks ago at the Iridium for the 60th anniversary of Gertie's Folk City, your voice sounded as, for singing for 70-some years, Carolyn, your voice hasn't lost an ounce of power or clarity.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you very much. I studied with a few good people, and in New York, and one of them was a guy named Paul Gabbert, and he'd say to me, all right, now we're doing these exercises, vocal exercises. Every time you come in, you warm up and you do these vocal exercises, but when you perform, I do not want to hear that influence in you at all. He says it's like you don't take the potato peelings to the table to serve the potatoes.
That's a great way of explaining things.
Well, and so that's how I kind of got to maintain some kind of naturalness, but I really strengthened myself by having the voice lessons, by knowing some fine teachers,
So how long would you, during that time, Carolyn Hester, how long would you rehearse during the day with your vocal exercises? Was it a half hour, longer than that?
Yeah, but about a half an hour every day.
Okay.
And it was tough. Sometimes you're sick and you got to go on anyway.
Right.
It's to be avoided if you can. But it's a challenge being a singer on the road.
Right.
and also being a woman singer, because I don't know, maybe we don't have a lot of power, but those every day paying attention to your craft, boy, that makes it,
Well, what are your other, like I said, you look like you're 35 years old. You just turned 83 last week, Carolyn Hester. What are your other, do you have any tricks to share with the rest of us for keeping all of us young?
That's wonderful. No, I swear I don't. I think that, walking is something that has helped me. There are some people in this world who have access to a swimming pool, and they can swim so often. But I also, luckily, for instance, my brother, who is still in Texas, and he plays guitar. He's a wonderful guitar player, but he's a lawyer, and he's been a lawyer all this time, but he's got this instinct for research. So he's researched, a lot of vitamins and, health food. And I think that has been good for me. He'll call me once in a while and, tell me, oh, are you eating some meat now? And of course, because I really love vegetables more than meat. So I'll say, well, okay, I'll eat some meat for what, that's incredible when you've got a team,
Yeah, right.
You've got a team, having a team. And now, of course, my life has changed so much. I met, my first husband was Richard Farina.
Right.
And we were married 2 years. And then
Been down so long, it looks up to me. I love that book.
Oh, I know. What an incredible. And I typed the first 90 pages of it. He was a really good writer, and I was, behind him. But at any rate, we didn't get along. It was so sad. But I later married my husband, David Bloom. We were married 36 years. He wrote the hit song "Turn Down Day" that the Circle had a hit on in 1966. And then he, pardon me, he was both an editor. He was a journalist for the LA Times. He worked 25 years for the LA Times as a journalist, but he also, while in California, he produced Hugo Montenegro records.
Really?
And Hugo Montenegro became, he and his wife, Kathy, became really like brother and sister to us, and they are kind of the godparents of our two daughters.
Who played with you at the Iridium?
Right, my daughters played at the Iridium.
Great.
Oh, thank you. And my husband had played with me we were on the road for about 30 years, but we also ran a folk dance club in LA, and he worked the 25 years at the Times. So, I just, I haven't just been a singer or,
Right.
I also wanted to be a mommy, and so I was very, very lucky. And now they'll take off with me once in a while. They have professions. They're just amazing young ladies, and they didn't talk. Sometimes they'll talk about what they do, but you can see what fine musicians they are.
Oh, they were phenomenal. We've got to get you guys up to Minneapolis. I'm going to work. That's one of my 2020 goals here, to get Carolyn and her daughters up to Minneapolis. They'd love you up here.
The last time I was in Minneapolis, I have to tell you, was in probably about 1965.
Wow.
Because I played a concert. I was opening a whole series of concerts for the comedian Godfrey Cambridge.
Yeah, sure. Boy, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Oh, he was magnificent. And one of the things that he was doing was that he would come out on stage wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit that was bright red satin.
Yeah,
my God.
Because Godfrey was... Yeah, Godfrey was...
They would go crazy, They would go crazy.
Well, he was, for those who didn't know Godfrey Cambridge, he was African-American.
Right.
Yeah.
He's been in some films. You can see his work actually on TV. Well, at any rate, so that night I met Bob Dylan's brother. Bob Dylan's brother came to the concert. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So I would so love to visit with you all in Minneapolis, played some songs and stuff. That would be wonderful.
Then we're going to make that happen. I'm going to open for you on that show, just like Bob. I'm going to talk my way onto your gig.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Okay. And then you have to join us on stage at the end. I like to do. Last night I had the strangest dream at the end. Okay.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Take hands with me right now, virtual handshake.
That's a virtual handshake. Carolyn Hester, I could talk to you all night long, and there's so many places and people that I know you've met over the years. But one of the great stories when I was doing a little research, rather than Peter, Paul, and Mary, it almost could have been Peter, Paul, and Carolyn. Tell us the story about how you turned down Paul Stuckey and Peter Yarrow from joining their duo to become a trio.
Well, what happened was that Albert Grossman, who managed Odetta at that time, and was helping Bob Dylan with his contracts at Columbia and all that. Managed Dylan for a few years there too. Grossman wanted to have a group. He wanted 2 men and a woman, and so I did not audition with the 2 boys, Peter and Paul. I played with he had Bob Gibson. Sure. And he had a guy named Ray Boguslav. I don't know if you know that name.
No, I know Gibson, of course.
But he was there in Greenwich Village, also. At any rate, the 2 of them were multi-talented, wonderful singers, and they played instruments. And Bob Gibson wrote some great songs. But I sang with them. I liked them. But I didn't really want to be in a group. I had been singing in a group around the village, and I don't know, it didn't really appeal to me. And I thought, well, I've got my record contract already. I think that I'm gonna remain a solo. So that's what happens. But back to Gertie's Folk City, yeah. I was there that night, just in the audience, just coming in to visit with Bob Porco's grandpa, right?
Yeah, Mike Porco.
And he says, well, Grossman's going to show up here in a few minutes. He says he's going to audition this new group. He said he's probably decided on this trio, but he says he's going to see what they do before an audience. And so it was Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Wow.
So I saw their first. It was just wonderful, you know. Talk about pooping around, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and then of course, Peter, Paul, and Mary had Blowing in the Wind and some great success with Bob Dylan's music.
That was coming, yeah.
Which I think might have been part of Grossman's strategy.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Wow, this is just such an incredible history. We've got about a minute left. Now, let's talk about, you recorded House of the Rising Sun in what year, Carolyn?
Oh my gosh. That was probably, I think that was in 62.
Okay.
Probably that was in 1962.
Because the great story, that was kind of one of Dave Van Ronk's signature tunes. And Dylan copped his arrangement and it kind of rubbed Van Ronk the wrong way. It didn't matter at that point because Bob had already recorded it on his John Hammond produced first record, Bob Dylan. We've got Carolyn Hester on all night tonight on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We're going to listen to a song she sings called We Dream Forever, and then one more set with the great Carolyn Hester. I hope you are having as much fun as I am.
The drum beats on in time, the heart of all mankind. We drum forever. take us back to simpler times. We shake forever.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
If you or someone you know needs dental care but can't afford it, go to Shamblot Family Dentistry's 14th annual Dentistry from the Heart event on Wednesday, February 12th, beginning at 7 a.m. It's a day of free dentistry for those in need. All patients will be seen on a first-come, first-served basis. No appointment required. Dentistry from the Heart provides free limited dental care to those in need. This event is for new patients. Since 20% of adults know they have cavities but haven't had them filled, and over 100 million Americans lack dental insurance, this event meets a huge need in our community. Shamblot Family Dentistry has given away almost $400,000 in free dentistry through Dentistry from the Heart. Again, Dentistry from the Heart is Wednesday, February 12th, beginning at 7 a.m. at Shamblot Family Dentistry in Hopkins at 33 10th Avenue South and at their new St. Paul location, 400 Selby Avenue in the Blair Arcade Building. It's first come, first served, so arrive early.
Get a head start on this year's Blue State Ball by having dinner with me, Tom Harbin, on Saturday, February 22nd at Crooner's Lounge and Supper Club. It's your chance to discuss with me the big issues facing the country in a small, intimate setting. You can guarantee your spot at the February 22nd dinner by pre-purchasing a ticket for $200. Tickets are very limited and will go fast. So reserve your spot now by calling 952-946-8885. More details at am950radio.com.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about outdoor fires. Sitting around a fire is the oldest, most basic form of human activity.
What's new is in the way fire is burned. We can show you how to burn cleaner with a lot less smoke.
The radiant heat and light from an open fire is unmatched. It kindles our spirits and connects us to the outdoors. And now it's easier to experience and enjoy.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs wood and gas burning fire pits and fireplaces. Let us help you experience an outdoor fire without all the smoke.
Come see the many ways you can enjoy a fire outdoors.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Black, black, black is the color of my true love's hair. His lips are something wondrous fair. The purest face and the smooth.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is the last set, unfortunately, because I'm having such a ball talking to my new friend, Carolyn Hester. We just heard her song introducing this set, Black is the Color of My True Love's Hair, from her recording session with the great Norman Petty down in Clovis, New Mexico. The song we listened to at the end of the third set was called We Dream Forever. Carolyn, tell us about who wrote that song and who's playing with you on that track.
Okay, We Dream Forever is like my second life in music. You know, when my daughters are on the road with me, and my daughter Carla and Amy Bloom, Carla with a K, Carla Bloom wrote "We Dream Forever," and in the recording is just Carla and Amy and myself playing and singing, and let's see what else I can say about that.
Well, you know what you can do, Carolyn, is tell us how often do you guys get a chance to play together, and how many nights a year do you perform?
Well, we're on the road on and off. We go every couple of months out, and but it's odd to us that we're now getting bookings into next year. Like, we know that we're going to be back in New York May of 2021. I mean, that
wow,
that impresses me. I mean, that didn't happen much.
Returning to New York at the ripe old age of 84. Keep rocking, Carolyn Hester. God, you are my new hero. We are going to have another conversation with you in the not too distant future. But tell us about, for those people that don't know about Gertie's Folk City. I mean, that's where Simon and Garfunkel performed before they were Simon and Garfunkel. Joan Baez, Judy Collins, the young Bob Dylan. And then, of course, you had all those great blues cats that were kind of in the process of being rediscovered, like
Paul Butterfield Blues Band. I mean, it was, oh my God, John Sebastian, John. It's really amazing. I mean, we should. I guess Bob Porco has a list. I don't know.
Yeah, well, then you had the blues cats getting rediscovered, like Big Joe Williams and John Lee Hooker,
yes.
and great line guitar player by the name of Doc Watson.
Whoa.
How many times do you think you played at Gertie's Folk City over the years, Carolyn Hester?
Well, it's hard to estimate because I played them early on, and then even if I had records come out and stuff like that, I would still go back and play there. Mm-hmm. And then when Mike David and I were playing, we played there oftentimes. We didn't move to California until 72, so a lot during the late 60s and early 70s, we were going down to Folk City, and they moved to 3rd Street,
right?
In 6th Avenue, and so I'm just sorry to say I didn't keep track of that, but it was wonderful because it was like having a home base, mm-hmm. And there were other places, like I played the Gaslight a lot,
right?
I really enjoyed that. The Gaslight, you could have some interesting experiences where water would drip on your head during your set.
A couple days after we played the Gertie's Folk City 60th anniversary in reunion, I went to the old Gaslight. It's now kind of a shishi cocktail bar called the Up and Up. So I went there and hung out to dig the vibe. Did you ever get a chance to meet over the years a friend of mine, one of the greatest folk singers of our time, Spider John Kerner, used to play the Gaslight. Did you ever get to meet Spider
John Kerner? Yeah, I knew him there and also in Boston.
Sure.
And I remember doing a concert in Boston that was a fundraiser for a children's hospital, and boy, all of us turned out. It was just tremendous, and Spider John just made a party out of it, and he was last seen swinging from the big red curtain.
Oh man!
Oh my gosh!
I'm gonna track John down. He goes to have his. He reads the New York Times and has a beer in the morning at a West Bank watering hole. I'm gonna track him down and tell him about the time he swung from the red curtain.
Oh, I told him that story one time later, and he says, "Well, I just don't remember it."
Well, that's what his great story about when Kerner and Glover debuted at the Newport Folk Festival in '64, and they were on a little later in the evening. And John goes, "Yeah, I don't remember a lot of it. We were all drunk." And I go, that's what I loved about these Minnesota folk singers. They didn't mind having a taste before they went on. So. We've got about a minute left, Carolyn Hester. So what kind of music are you listening to in the year 2020?
Well, a lot of the Irish folk singers, a lot of the European ones. I love their harmonies. It inspires me a lot. So I'm not really keeping up with what's new, and so you could give me a hand there. You can recommend some people to me, and I would appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that guy James Maddock that played at the Iridium was phenomenal.
Well, he's wonderful.
Yeah, he was just great.
And Willie Niles, that was fun.
Oh, Willie
too.
he was. They were all great. Terry Roach was great. Richard Barone. We want to thank Bob Porco for having us all on.
Absolutely, and Terry Roach.
Terry Roach was great.
What a doll.
Yeah, she was just phenomenal. And Rob Stoner and the drummer they had was really cool. It was just a really wonderful night. Carolyn Hester, this has been such an amazing conversation. The history of Greenwich Village folk music that was my grand influence as a young Iron Range folkie when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. So to get in touch and to meet people like you, it's really a dream come true.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. It really makes me very happy, and I'm sorry that Pete isn't still with us, Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
But he's, I guess he's in our hearts, so.
Absolutely. He's
still feeding us,
Yeah, I have a great memory of Pete Seeger. We played the 96. It was the tribute to Woody Guthrie, sponsored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I had the pleasure of riding in a van from the rehearsal to dinner at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio, with Pete Seeger, Harold Leventhal, Harold's wife Toshi, a great Texas songwriter who passed away a couple years ago, a good friend of mine, Jimmy LaFave, and a fellow named Greg Johnson who runs a club called the Blue Door in Oklahoma. Anyway, I remember Pete going. You remember how Pete used to speak in that really straight New England voice. He goes, yes, he goes, I remember the time Woody and I were in Seattle, and we heard the term hootenanny for the first time in 1938. And as a guy that grew up inspired by Pete Seeger and Woody and Bob and you and everybody else, I go, man, that would be like sitting next to Moses when Moses goes, when I came up with that thou shalt not kill commandment. Carolyn Hester, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Wall and Power Radio Hour. This show was recorded by Brett Johnson, produced by Paul Metza, and we'd like to thank our guest, Carolyn Hester. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.